Hello, welcome back, everybody, to another year of the Sunday Podcast.
I'm Ollie Lam.
And I'm Matt Seddon.
Back in 2025 for our 5th season. You can expect more of this.
He's claiming that he was ill before the semi-final, whatever. But, you know, I just feel like at that point he was just looking for attention.
And some of this.
Elio normally say, no human is limited. So I can't limit myself, or I can't just say I can do.
As well as event coverage around all the major races on the UK circuit.
And if you're a fan of the pod, please give us a rating and review on your preferred podcast streaming service.
And if you want to stay up to date with all the latest news, give us a follow on Instagram at Sunday Podcast.
As always, thanks for listening. See you next time. And we hope you enjoyed the episode.
Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode brought to you by sportshoes.com. As always, weekend roundup today. Feels like it's been a while since we've done one because I guess a few weeks off racing. But look, outdoor track season well and truly underway with Grand Slam over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Matt and I thought we'll break down all the action, bits we liked, bits we didn't, bits we think they could, I guess, move on with through the season. And then also obviously a few other bits and bobs from around the world and what's coming up too. Matt, mate, where do you want to start?
Well, we've got to start with Grand Slam. Obviously, we will get onto that European Road Running Champs this week, and obviously Ben Connor passing up the opportunity. But maybe we've got to start with Grand Slam. I mean, I thought it was 10 out of 10, and like obviously there are a few things which you hope improve, but like I just think the format is so good. Firstly, the fact it lasts all weekend, and some people are like, why do I want to meet that lasts all weekend? But actually, one of the biggest problems with our sport is that athletes don't get exposure, and the general public do not connect with athletes. They do not know who they are because they don't see them enough. They're just not on TV enough. You know, F1 is over a whole weekend. That name of drivers is out there constantly all the time. And it's the same. Like, as soon as you watch the 1500, you're like, brilliant. I kind of connected with, you know, if you're a member of the public, I connected with Wanyonyi. When's he racing again? Oh, he's racing again in 2 days. Amazing. And it's just, so it's more exposure. And this is what Grand Slam are going for, right? It's just more exposure. And I think it will be a case of those involved with Grand Slam, their stock is going to rise. It's going to grow massively. Those who are kind of competing for the Grand Slam titles and stuff, they're going to get, surely the sponsors are going to bloody love it. The fact that they are competing at Grand Slam, just because of their exposure and the way, you know, there's no other governing body or any Instagram account or anything like that who puts as much coverage into athletes as what Grand Slam have done over the last however many months, but then also through the championships as well. And on the TV, I thought the coverage, like even just having a picture of each athlete, was just super beneficial for, you know, a new audience who don't kind of know what they're looking for and who they're looking at. So, yeah, so honestly, like the fact it was over a weekend, it kept me super engaged. I was super excited to see what the next race was going to be. I just think it was faultless. And obviously, any fault that I was thinking about the event, I was just like, that will be ironed out as the event grows.
So it wasn't faultless, is what you're saying?
Well, no, like you're going to say there was no one in the stands, which I guess doesn't look amazing. There was no one in the stands. I think the points, we just spoke about that, the 12 points for the win and the 8 for second, like that does make it quite win heavy. In the sprints, it's not a problem because you can kind of, everyone just goes flat out, but it does mean that, like, I mean, Grant Fisher was a prime example, right? He was already doing the maths. But I don't really see that scenario happening too much.
Yeah. So I don't think it was 10 out of 10. Like you say, I think there are a few kinks, but like you say, I do think they can be ironed out fairly easily. Like if not this year, next year. Yeah. What I'd have liked to see more, I think they could have kicked off with a bit more of a bang, like on the first day, like first race, and made a bit more of a thing around it. Because I think I warmed to it over the weekend, and I was like, that's great, obviously, and I think that will be great for the rest of the season. But I just think I was like, could you have not made sure that you absolutely have a packed crowd for day one, and then like make sure, obviously with distance bias, right? But then have like, say that men's 15 was the opening event, and really like tell a story in terms of like some behind the scenes video of these athletes training.
Thought that was what was going to come. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it didn't really, it was just like, welcome to Grand Slam. This is the first one. Like, Crammy's a great commentator, but because he commentates everywhere, it then just felt like any other meet. And then it was like, they explained what Grand Slam was, filmed an empty stadium, and then we just saw a 200-meter race.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And don't get me wrong. Over the weekend, I warmed to it and was like, this is cool. This is more of what I expected. But I just thought, in terms of like, if I was a new viewer, and then you're not guaranteed to stick it out, because we were always going to watch the races no matter what, right?
We were. But I think our coverage, we definitely weren't receiving the same things that those in America were receiving. Because I mean, Centro and Sanya Richards Ross, etc., like they were pundits basically, and we never saw them once. So I feel like our TNT coverage was a little bit limited in that sense, and maybe they did showcase because the American coverage was longer as well. I think it was like another half hour either side of the meet. So I feel like those, videos and stuff, maybe the Americans saw them. I actually don't know. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, and I think they'll learn that Kingston is just not a great location. Unless you're doing a pure high school sprints meet, I don't think people in Kingston give a fuck.
Yeah.
To be honest.
And I mean, it was also just like,
and they'll learn that.
I think you could forecast like the fact that you're going to, because the reason the crowds came is because they let like high school kids in, which is brilliant, right? They should do that, but you can forecast that before the first day. Rather than like thinking, it was empty last night, we better let people in for free. A week before, be like, well, okay, we better let some people in for free and let's go around and open it up to school kids and stuff like that. Because that's what we want to see anyway. Like we want to see it opened up to a younger audience and people like who are going to be inspired. So I think you can do that way earlier.
A week, 2 weeks before. I mean, even when we spoke to Carl Merber, that was 2 or 3 weeks before, and they'd sold like I could basically buy the whole stadium if I wanted to. They hadn't sold many tickets, so yeah, I think that was always going to happen. I mean, I just think with our sport, it's been the same for so long, and some of the things I did like about it, right, forces athletes to race at this time of year, but there's a date in the diary and that's it. The athlete can't change. And I feel one of the biggest issues with our sport is if an athlete gets a little niggle, if they get a little bit of an illness, they just pull out of races and they go and race 2-3 weeks down the line. So we only ever see athletes when they are pretty much 99% to 100% fit. And it's so dull and so boring. Yeah. And because those athletes had to line up, Cole Hocker, Nagus, all these guys, you could see they weren't prepared for it. I mean, the 800 was a joke. Like they just couldn't live with it. And because they haven't done all the speed work and all the training required for them to have that top end speed, whereas the 8 guys are just blessed with that raw speed, they can run towards 23s for fun over that sort of first 200.
Yeah. And then they're in prime 1500 shape right now because they're coming off the wing.
Yeah. So, yeah. But I love that because it threw up some different results. And if Josh Kerr wasn't doing Grand Slam, we wouldn't see him. Because he had this little, he came out and said he had this little hip niggle, and we wouldn't have seen those matchups. Like we don't ever see those matchups. So I think this is where Grand Slam is doing a great job. And people will say about the 5K, Grant Fisher running 14:39 and stuff, but
I love that. I thought it was my only thing with that was 2 things. I thought the field needs to be bigger. Like you need more challenges because it just looked a bit.
They can accept more challenges in the 5, I think.
For sure. Like, particularly if you're going to run 14:39 because. I'm not being funny. They went through 3K, and I was like, "Whoa!" A couple of years ago, I could have gone through 3K with them. Right? It was that slow. That's the thing. Like, you don't even need to have it as like the elite of the elite in terms of the challenges if they're going to run 14:39 pace because it's not actually an issue. The one thing though, there was no. I don't know about like the other nations, right? But there was no laps on the 5K, and because they're running so slow. All I could see was a timer, and I had no idea where they were. And it was suddenly like, oh, they're kicking now. So that was something. But that's minor. Like you can fix that next week, right? So or whenever.
Yeah, and I agree. Because the 3K and the 5K were all the races, they're a championship style because there's no paces. Yeah. And I think because of that, in the distance races like the 3 and the 5, you can definitely be a little bit more lenient with the challenges. I think the 8 and the 15, you get outclassed if you're just not fit enough. And
they're fine with small fields anyway. Do you know what I mean? A 1500 with 10 guys is fine, like 8 to 10 guys.
Yeah. So I wonder if there will be scope. But yeah, that was one of the things I loved about it. It forced these guys to race this time of year. And in that Grant Fisher 5, again, it gives someone like Grant, these top guys, an opportunity to practice skills that they would not practice in a race. Grant would, he would go and do a Diamond League 5000. Like, where else would we have seen Grant this summer? Very few places. He maybe does like a 1500 somewhere in America and runs it gun to tape, 332 or something like that. So if I'm Jakub sitting at home, I'm like, Jesus Christ, he's closing in 51. It
reminded me of like old school NCAA racing, which is what obviously me and you, we used to love watching that because they race so much that they can't always go smash times. And then like you get into like the postseason and people are absolutely jog fest. Remember like the classics like Ches v Geordie Williams and stuff like that, Penn relays, and that's what it was like. It was like, especially seeing these Americans who we've not seen run in college for so many years. It was like seeing them back in the NCAA, which I thought was so cool.
Yeah, agreed. You know, I remember Farah, 2013 European team champs, dropping a 50-point last lap, and that was a similar race. I'm pretty sure he ran well outside 14 minutes that day. And like, it's good to see that, because it then puts things into context and how he matches up against the others. You know, Kubitir and stuff. So
Westy needs to get himself in Grand Slam, mate. He's the king of that sort of race.
Yeah, although mate, that was And what was cool is like we've seen wind-ups like over the last couple of years, but an actual max out kind of 400, who's actually got the fastest, basically flat 400, and it's still Grant Fisher came away with it. Like, I'm looking at that, by the way, Fisher's performances, and if he can hold this sort of shape in September, that'll be the challenge. If he can, I mean, I think he beats Jakob in the 5K, even though Jakob is so dominant. I think
he almost needs to have a break and then do the same thing again. I'm like, September's just
and this is what as good as Grand Slam is for, I think, us watching it through the season, how will the athletes fare come September? Because it is a lot of racing. And I think we even saw, like Josh Kerr, I think, prime example, running, what are you on, 150 and 800 or something?
150, yeah.
I think, he's given up a bit there, hasn't he? He hasn't been like, once he's off it, he's given up a little bit. But again, with this niggle that he cleared up, he had to get himself fit. And these races they're going to interrupt his preparation. So, but hey, British-wise, by the way, Neil Gorley, very, very impressive. Very, very impressive. Coming out, basically beat beat the Olympic podium in the 800.
That's it. And we were saying, like, I wonder how that's going to look, though. Like, final Grand Slam meet, that's the thing in terms of the positions we've seen. So, no, it was cool. It was cool. And I think definitely, like, as it moves around and we see athletes, like, in better shape as well, that will be interesting. Like some of these matchups, and you just look at even the sprints and stuff like that. We like notoriously we're not like always into, but it was cool because like me and you always tune in for the Olympic 100-meter final.
Yeah, definitely,
because it's high caliber. And this one, like, watch the 100 meters at Grand Slam because I'm like, oh, it's actually a high caliber 100. Whereas the only time I watch it in a Diamond League is if it is like in between two distance races, or I know it's one race after the last distance race, so I just leave it on for 10 minutes,
Yeah, and look, they just did big wins for me. The fact that when a race was on, that was the only thing on the track at that time. I've always said, like, for TV audiences, that's how it should be. Don't flick to something else. And so we just got to watch the races, and we got to get to know the athletes for 5 minutes before, then we watched the race, and then we had some analysis like that. That's it. That's all you need. And they kind of nailed that because obviously the meet just lends itself to that. I think a few people were saying it would be great to have pacers in one of the distance races just to move it along. And I'm just thinking, no way. Any sort of pacer in any of the distance races would just ruin everything Grand Slam stands for. And I think we want to drift away from that side of the sport. Hey, look, if there's a fast time that comes, amazing. But I think we just want to enjoy winning and losing. And with these meets, the way they're across the whole weekend as well, I think it's so much more unpredictable. Even major championships are probably more predictable than Grand Slams. And because of the time of year, athletes are in peak shape.
Yeah.
And they're running just, their event. They're going through the rounds. Whereas like 8:15, 3K5, there are differences. How can you recover? And it's like the climate you're racing in, you've had zero time to acclimatize. Whereas a major champs, they always go to 2-3 weeks before. They're in that part of the world, they're acclimatizing, they're getting used to the heat, blah blah blah. Whereas Grand Slam, it's just they just dump you. He dumped you in Kingston. I mean, I can't imagine too many distance runners have ever even been to Jamaica.
What I think would be cool, and you mentioned Formula One, I'd love to see like them almost like racing pairs for a like constructors style championship as well, though, because you mentioned like if you had a pacer, say like it was Gawley and Kerr, right, or whether you do it by brands or nation or whatever, and actually by the end of it, Gawley's run out of it, but he then paces Kerr on the last slam to help him like win the race or whatever to win overall, or you get people stabbing each other in the back and actually they don't want to help their teammates out and stuff like that. I think that would be pretty cool. Like further down the line.
Yes, I could see something like that happening, because actually one of the things I did enjoy, and you probably the same, mate, is I think this was much more by coincidence than planning, but athletes were so easy to see because we rarely had, like, I think in the men's 5 we had three Nike guys like Fisher and Quemoy, but most of the races we only had like 1 or 2 from each brand.
Yeah.
So it's just easy to see the athletes. Like even in the men's 8 and 15, you had Arop and Hoppel, both Adidas, but they were wearing different Adidas strips. And I just thought it was great. Like they're coming down the home straight and they're all wearing different vests pretty much. And it's like, right, yeah, I can I can see clearly, etc. So, and for new audiences, that's a big win because Diamond League 5Ks, where they're all wearing that pink Nike vest, it's just like, what am I watching?
And mate, on the singlets, let's just take a moment to appreciate Cole Hocker's champions kit this year. What an absolute throwback to, I don't even know which year it is. I can't even think, but
Tell you, man, 2009,
unreal.
the purple.
Yeah, they've absolutely smashed that one out of the park. And I don't say that often, to be fair. Like, it's been a while since they had a kit that I was like, wow, that's back on it. I thought Cole Hocker's was superb.
I think the Adidas kits are cleaner. I just love the solid, the block colorway, mate. You know, Adidas block colorway red or block colorway white. Yeah, it's like still brands need to do. Just again, make it another level up, make it easier for the viewers. But I know what you mean. Nike have obviously, they've got a bit creative, haven't they? Pulled it kind of out of the bag with their latest kit. But yeah, so, you know, and I think on the races, we won't analyze each race because one, there was a lot of them, and two, I'm sure everyone's seen the races. And if you haven't, like TNT have done a good job just clipping them down, putting them on YouTube. I would recommend going back watching the full stream as well if you've got TNT, because yeah, it was bloody good. And the Sunday night was a bit earlier as well, so that was easy to watch. I won't lie. I did stay up for the races and I was a bit of sort of dipping in and out. My eyes, you know, and your eyelids are just like closing up. I had to really slap my face a few times to stay awake at 1:30 in the morning, but I'm just a pussy.
Yeah, we know that. But anyway, yeah, that's Grand Slam. Let's should we get into Ben Connor and the Europeans and his statement of intent, I guess, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess it's easy for Ben Connor to decline the GB vest as well, though. I think that gets overlooked. If this is like his first championships or his first GB,
or if he's in Olympics, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he's not making that. He's not making that stance. Like it's easy decision for him. He probably wasn't really like. I would love to know if he was really intending to do the European champs. I don't think he was. If he was, he would have sacrificed the 1,100 quid, because to be honest, looking at the field, I mean, if he backed his shape, it's pretty average, to be honest with you. I mean, fastest
I don't
man.
think that's the point, though, mate. I don't think that's the point. The point is that he doesn't want to set a precedent for particularly young athletes who come from backgrounds who aren't as affluent, right? Or anyone, to be honest, because no one's parents or themselves should be paying for them to represent Great Britain, right? And he just doesn't want to set a precedent that actually athletes are going to be okay with this. I guess the future generation don't get financed out of being on teams.
Yeah. I just think we live in an unrealistic. It's unrealistic to think that, you know, Britain can send a team to all of these championships that exist, you know, under 18s, under 20s, under 23s. And like, I would actually rather, you know, British athletics invest more in, you know, some of our athletes, some of our coaches, and that kind of high level, like that funding, etc. Because as good as these championships are, I do hear what you're saying, but I think, you know, if you're a kid, yeah, obviously it's nowhere near the same amount, but, you know, pay to go to English schools, you have to pay to go to that. But I just think the times are changing and there's so many bloody competitions, mate. And this one was a brand new competition. I think, like, yeah, Dream World, everything's free. You know, the minute you get the GB vest, everything's free. But I can't imagine how much it costs. I mean, there's a whole nother debate. Like, they could do it a lot cheaper as well, though. Like, I don't know why it's £1,100, but that's just, anyway. Can't be asked to get into that.
Yeah, I just think I get what you're saying. We always complain when they don't send full teams or any team to certain events and things. But
also, brands, you know, if you're an athlete, your sponsor should be paying comfortably. Sure. And look, you know, I think athletes, they train for so long, we're talking about the athletes who are going to qualify for these European championships, which, you know, you are basically professional on the borderline, you know, semi-professional, you know, you are probably doing this sport full time, or at least you're almost at that level, right? Because you're not going to be running 27 odd minutes and, you know, 61 odd minutes for the half marathon if you're not in that scenario. And the same on the women's side. But my point is, you know, these athletes will have sponsors, and can't the brands pay for that? Is it not included in their expenses? But also, what are you training for? You know, if you're going on all these training camps, spending thousands of pounds a year on altitude camps and warm weather camps and this and that, then, you know, £1,100, yes, it's, you know, a lot of money for a one-off race, but, you know, that could pay off. Like, if you see it as an investment, it could quite easily pay off. Like, I look at Ben Connor, I'm like, he could probably place Well, don't know. There could be a top 10 finish there for him if he wanted it top 8, and and it's a championship race at the end of the day. So you could really challenge for a top 5, something like that. But especially some of our other guys, if Paddy Diva was doing this, mate, he'd be looking at almost a cert medal, to be honest.
I mean, yeah, it's more for the guys and girls, like in the future potentially, like outside of that bracket of elites. The thing is, you'd never be able to like police it, right? But like if you could do it so that brands had it written into their contracts that they pay for stuff like that, and then if you are unsponsored, it is covered, then fine. But I just think it, and I think this is Ben Connor's point as well, is that it sets a precedent, and who knows what this looks like 3, 5, 10 years down the road. Right?
You don't want it ever to creep into the major championships,
or anywhere really. You don't want it to creep in anyway. Like, and other sports do it, and other nations do it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's right. Particularly when you've got people working at British Athletics on like some huge salaries as well.
Yeah, we don't know what these people get paid to. But on the flip side of that, I think the people on the cusp would actually be. I would love to do a survey, but I think they'd be more inclined to pay because again,
I think they would be inclined to pay because it's their first opportunity, but it doesn't mean they should. No. I think that's the point. It's not about whether they're inclined to pay or not. Of course, you're more inclined to pay if you're on the cusp. If it's your first ever team, you're going to pay, but that doesn't mean you should have to.
Yeah. I think, look, we all disagree with it, but I think, this is just the time and the climate that British athletics are in at the moment. And I think with Ben Connor's decision, like, definitely comes from a place like he doesn't want to set that precedence, but at the same time, that's an easy event for him to turn down.
Yeah, but it gets the conversation going, right? We're talking about it, people are talking about it, and if it does that, then it's a good thing.
Yeah. A man who could have done this could have represented GB at one of these events is Charles Hicks, and he announced he's going to be talking to British Athletics and just the shambles of the organisation. He's going to look to switch back to America. Yeah, he's transferring allegiance. After that, he ran a 45:14 for the 10 mile, very strong, would have been an American record, and one of the reasons was he just doesn't rate the British Athletics selection policies, which I understand. But also, I watched his YouTube, and it sounds like he wants to do a little bit more roads as well. And I do think financially, for a guy who's grown up in America, if he wants to make track teams, Britain would be the nation to run for. If he does want to compete on the roads, America's the place, because I think he just earns way more money. The brands like Nike will pay him way more. Appearance fees will be way more if he's an American, doing American road races. But one of the things he was like, I think he's tired of the British athletic selection policies and just the governing body in general.
Yeah. And do you know what I mean? That's sad. It shouldn't be about that. It should be about who you want to compete for.
Yeah.
It should be like, I want to wear Great Britain on my chest, or I want to wear USA on my chest. And you shouldn't have to think about anything else. And if that's the case, if it's not down to that, then I think that's sad that he doesn't feel like he can get what he needs from his governing body.
Yeah. It's by the way, do watch his YouTube video though if you're listening, because it even sounded like he was a little bit burnt out last year, having to just chase times all the time. I think he is a racer. But this is why I'm like, mate, why weren't you doing European cross? Like, why weren't you, like, you're amazing at cross. Like, he's an NCAA cross champion. Like, why wouldn't he get involved in the cross country and stuff like that? Like, there are races out there. He wasn't doing it. But I think, injuries and stuff. We don't know the guy, and we definitely don't know his setup and stuff. But he won't be competing for GB anymore. But anyway, back to the European Road Running Champs, mate. We won't have any men in the half marathon. The 10K, we definitely will, though. And Rory Leonard goes in ranked 4th on season's best. And actually, I think virtually PBs as well, with his 27:38, 27:39.
Absolutely, man. He'll be looking to well and truly, like, grab that race by the scruff of the neck. Like, we know what he's like. He fears no one. He's going to get right in the mixer and have a go, And I think that's what people are excited to see.
Well, yeah, our boy Charlie Wheeler as well. He goes in ranked 6th. I mean, the only guys faster is Libalu, Kimeli, and Nordas, who are faster than Leonard. And then FIFA splits Leonard and Wheeler. So we could walk away with some silverware, to be honest.
Yeah, I think both of them, right? Like, if you're there or thereabouts.
10 finishes for sure. I mean, Jan Scrub's doing it, and he's obviously, and Etienne Degoines of France, and those guys are legit as well.
I'm not saying they're going to medal, but I'm saying both of them are going to be going there, and they're going to go and try a medal for sure. Just the type of characters they are as well.
If you spoke to Wheeler, he's got for a medal.
No, I've not actually spoken to him, to be fair. I only talk to George these days. I just think that type of personalities they are, both Leonard and Charlie Wheeler, like they'll go there and they'll look at that and they'll be like, right, I may as well get in amongst it and see how it go. You know?
Yeah, and I think, you know, Manthorpe and Cross as well. I mean, Ellis Cross obviously ran really well over the 10 the other day, 27. Look, 40 low, and, you know, he's going to want to transition that to the road. So, again, it's going to be a good race for these boys. And I think we have got an opportunity of really packing. I mean, I think there's a team medal that they can try to win. Be between us and France, I reckon. But if they all run PBs, or like around their PB, we should be getting a team medal. So, and the marathon's not too much to, as we suspected, really. It's not too much to sort of.
It would just be a weird one, isn't it?
To talk about.
Like, I don't know who's getting enticed by that. And that's a bit of a shame that you're not enticed by a GB vest, right? But there's just so much more out there when it comes to the roads.
Much more there to do.
European road running.
Yeah, including the London Marathon, which many of our Brits are training for.
Mm-hmm.
On that, mate, news, obviously, Mark Scott, unfortunately, pulls out of London. So we're going to be without Mark Scott and without Emil Carres.
Mate, I think what it does show you, though, it shows you how humbling the marathon is, because I think there was a bit of an assumption that Mark would move up to the marathon and then just automatically become the number one guy because of his 5K credentials. And then I think it puts a bit of respect on someone like, obviously Emil's done it, you just met, but like someone like Sesman's name. Not that people don't respect him, but I think it just shows you how hard these guys work and how good they are.
I think Sesman's ability to stay fit is very impressive. Very impressive. Yeah. So more on that, I'm sure, as we near the London Marathon. But yeah, Brits representing on the women's side in the 10K, especially that's going to be the exciting one for us. And Phoebe Anderson, full squad of 6. Phoebe Anderson, Sarah Aston, Jane Nesbitt, Ockenden, Beth Potter, and Amelia Quirk. Yeah, you're thinking again. I mean, leading entry on season's best at the moment is Clara Lucan, 6. Anne Van Ez, obviously Dutch lady as well, 30:29, her lifetime best. But when you're looking at Beth Potter getting down to 31 low, again, she could be someone who contended for a medal. And I'm intrigued to see how she does. I mean, when was the last time she raced like a proper race?
Like international,
like a non-domestic road race. So excited to see how she does actually in like a, proper race environment, not kind of like a time trial.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I wonder what it means for her, like ambitions going forward. Are we going to start to see her more in and around the running circuit, or is it going to be straight back to triathlon a year post Olympics? Like, is it time, a bit like Alex Yee's doing, like doing London? Is it time to just like spend a bit more time running again and then reconsidering, or just dipping a toe back in? So it'll be interesting to see how she goes, and then obviously what she does the rest of the year and the next couple of years as well.
Yeah, I think like triathlon do operate, it's a bit like cycling, they do love to operate in these Olympic cycles. And I think the year after the Olympics is just a quiet time for triathletes. They're just not, I think they do want to go and explore. And then by the end of 2026, or by the end of this year, even this calendar year, I think they're going, right, okay, now I need to start thinking about how I'm going to build into.
And it's cool. And I think that's why triathlon's almost taken off. Like, imagine we don't really get it. We see him come back to running and we're like, oh, it's cool to see him going. But imagine being a hardcore triathlon fan and you can see all your favorite athletes go and doing a London Marathon or doing a European Road Running Champs, or I don't know if any of them managed to get in proper cycling races or swimming races, but do you know what I mean? Like that, it's quite a cool prospect.
They don't, mate. I don't think. I think
I wouldn't know. I can't imagine they do.
I don't know either. But I think one of the few transferable sports or the main transferable sport, shall I say, out of the 3 is definitely running. Or maybe that's only because we know the runners amongst them. But yeah, and then in the half, Hannah Irwin, Natasha Phillips go in the half marathon, and Georgina Twining in the marathon, and George James. So we have got a couple of representatives in the marathon. But yeah, I guess Hannah Irwin and Natasha Phillips are the ones to watch in the half on the women's side. So yeah, we'll see how this very first European Road Running Champs goes down.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take a look, won't we?
We will.
Yeah, it's nothing crazy. I think more opportunities is good though, isn't it? Like, as much as this championship's not going to set the world alight, but if people can get some experience, get some international races, get some good fields, it'll certainly be good. I guess closer to home, mate, coming up, road relays are around the corner, which I guess marks the start of the domestic track season, I guess, post road relays, really. But again, an event that we talk about Grand Slam right at the start of this episode and kind of building up hype. An event that could so easily, I think, build up more hype and build more expectation. The road relays, we just don't really know, do we? Like, no one's. I mean, I guess I say that, mate. We could be covering it. We could be going and messaging people and asking them what their teams are looking like. But it's difficult to follow, isn't it? For an event that is kind of. Well, I'm presuming it's unique to the UK anyway. Maybe it's not, but it's an event that is pretty cool and quite widely anticipated and watched by you guys, I guess, the guys who listen to this podcast.
Yeah, the 12 stage, I think, again, I just think it comes at a busy time of year. A lot of athletes, you've only got to go on Instagram and see how many people are away, actually out of the country on training camps. So that obviously, hinders a few teams. And so I think like just the calendar's changing for a lot of athletes. So, but then also with the 12 stage, I mean, this year actually is, especially on the men's side, it's exciting because all the legs are going to be 5K or, whatever it is, just over 5K. So I think that is a nice change. And I would like to see that change stick.
So that's just because the long leg is absolutely brutal, mate, and you just got bad memories.
I have no intentions of doing a 12 stage, so I don't care personally. But I mean, I think it's going to be so much more gripping for, surely the people at the event would enjoy that more as well. I think the long legs do, if you've got a couple good distance boys, they can kill it off. And I always felt, everyone knew the short legs were pointless in a way. Like it was like unless you do the damage on the long legs and your short legs are just like just get them done. And the real races were just always on the long legs anyway. So I always thought that was a bit pointless. I always thought like comparing, times and how people run. Obviously, it's hard to get a gauge between the short and the long. And I just think it will make the race. Well, one, it will make the race closer because it's shorter. It'll just be far more exciting for probably everyone watching. So that's a nice change. I heard it's something to do with the car park at the venue. That's why they've changed it. And yeah, basically they just don't want to close the car park, which apparently they have to do on the long leg.
Ideal then. Just made the race better then. Ideal.
So yeah, but I think, hey, teams that we got to give credit to, and I think our big favourites. Yeah, I'll be brutally honest. Yeah, we haven't done heaps of research for the road relays, but I think I'm going to say it now. Favourites for me, Bristol and West on the men's side, and I think Reading AC on the women's side. They won the Southerns. If they have, Mia Waldman, Jess Gibbon, they've got people like Em Hauschert. They've got a strong team. Lauren Church. They've got plenty of others who can deliver some strong legs, especially over 5K. And then, so I think they'll win the women's. And then on the men's, I think Bristol and West. It's got so much depth. I mean, National Cross proved that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, mate, I agree with that. I've got nothing to add. I've got no more insight than that. So, yeah.
Well, I just think like Leeds, Leeds aren't going to have a Mil Caress run. They're not going to have Phil Sesson.
They're on a bit of a dip, aren't they, Leeds?
So they are. I can't imagine. I don't know how strong their team is. We're not in touch, but yeah,
you can't dominate forever, can you? No. Dynasty's over.
But I think with the relays, it's definitely not a priority for many teams.
You don't want your athletes to get too good, and then it doesn't become a priority. Like Emil and Phil have just got too good, whereas when they were like kind of breaking out, it's less risky for them to just be like, oh well, yeah. Whereas now they're at such a level, whereas to improve, like you can't put a foot wrong. Any unnecessary risk it's not worth it. So
even like Highgate have like they've got a really strong team, but again they've just got loads of guys who I think are preparing for London, and so because of that they won't all be doing the road relays, and I think a bit of a shame, but hey, it's what it is. So yeah, we'll definitely look at the results and discuss through them, and it's always good to identify, you can kind of predict some early season form, who's actually moving well, because you have got, the history of who's run what around that course. But usually it's always the long legs you look at and you go, okay, this matches up against Alex Yee and people like that, what they've done around here. Whereas the short legs, notoriously, you've always had your weaker runners on.
Yeah, so that's some new fastest times maybe.
It's a new fastest time
going on those short leg, but yeah, that's to look forward to. And obviously, we got track races will be coming thick and fast soon. But I think that wraps us up. Obviously, got a few guests coming up for you guys, so look forward to those. And yeah, we promise they're excellent guests, but we won't give too much away. But thanks as always for listening to myself and Matt ramble on. We'll catch you on Sunday with our guest episode, and then we'll catch you next week with another weekend roundup, I'm sure too. So have a great week, guys. See you very soon.